in order to teach mathematics. And I think Nearpod also allows us to do a debrief at the end. And I think I've also read other places that the debrief makes learning very meaningful to the students, because they do need an audience. So if they're doing I don't do that every day, but when I do use Nearpod, I will prepare one question, maybe from math. There's just one question, an open-ended question, like something about measurement. Let's say, can you measure something in the classroom in many ways as you can? So the students will go there, they take the device and they take pictures. Oh, I measure the tile, I measure the table, I measure the aquarium tank, and you use different measurements and you take pictures. So everybody may do something different, and at the end we all come back and debrief and take they use all the pictures. At the end, the debriefing with Nearpod and the creativity that they bring makes them very interested in learning mathematics. So I just found that so useful, I think, to learn mathematics.
So I'm sitting here wondering, for some of us who might not know, can you just give us a 1 second? What is Nearpod?
Nearpod is just a software that you can have it on any device. You can, the teacher will take pictures, and you can, there's a teacher look and there's a student look. So the teacher will take pictures, they will pose questions, and they design activities for the students. The teacher is able to see what the students are doing at all times, and from there end, the students can log into a student session to Nearpod and see the questions and do the activity that the teacher had prepared for them. It comes free, but if you want more memory, then you pay $10 a month and you're able to use it. I have it here, and it's just on my iPad, and I use my computer, the iPad. Some students have those phones. It works on many devices.
I think, yeah.
So what exactly, like, do you want to expand on, or like?
No, I just wanted to know, like, I was looking for more ideas into mathematics.
Okay, I was just speaking to Nick here, and I don't know, for elementary panel, I don't know if you've heard of the book Math That Matters by David Stocker. He's and I think the book is grade 7-8 focused, but you could tailor it to younger grades, right? And I can give you an example, and I don't know, like, if it's technology that you want to do with, like, a lot of the lessons don't necessarily need technology. I can give you an example of one of the lessons that I've seen personally. So for instance, I don't know if you know this, but if you take the box that holds all the photocopy paper,
Yeah.
you know, that box. I don't know how he found this out, but if we still had $1 bills instead of a loonie, $77,000. Right? So his activity was, you know, he said if we were to fill this room, or no, the next statistics that he brought out was at that point in time, when I went to his workshop, the U.S. government had spent $1 trillion on the war in Afghanistan. So he said, you know, if we, you know, let's measure this room, and how many boxes of this money could we fill in this room, and how many of these rooms would we need to add up to $1 trillion?
Yeah.
Right? And it happened that when I was at OISE, when we did this thing, it would take probably, I think it was like 200 or 300 buildings of that sort of thing, right? So that was, you know, those are some of the types of activities that he does. So like, they are open-ended, and just to see how, like, you know, doing it with teachers, how, right? Like, you know, some of us really wanted meter sticks or measuring tapes. Some of us did like estimation, like just estimated the volume of the room, right? And then you also have to calculate the volume of the box, right? And then there's a lot of math going on there, like all sorts of things like that, right?
What's the name of it?
It's called Math That Matters, right? And every lesson in there has a social justice sort of spin on it.
And what's the teacher's name?
It's, his name is David Stalker, S-T-O.
You're using the textbook for that. How did you find, how did you find that within their part, you said you're not necessarily using a textbook, how did you find the lessons without using a textbook? How were you able to generate them without the textbook?
I do use a Marion Small book,
Yeah.
good questions. So most of what I prepared, the lesson I prepared with your part was done using the open-ended questions based on Marion Small book. Question. It gives a big idea, a big mathematical idea, and from there you could include, social justice ideas, which is better than just measuring a table, But I see the ZooBot. I was thinking about that because I have this book as well in my classroom, and I also have the robots, so I will make them measure the robots. It's something that is fun for them to do. So if you have fun, we can use that. So use a link that interests the students. So social learning, I think social justice is really important, and I think you could link to that. But to link it back to I still have to follow my math curriculum. So, but I can integrate from different areas, and that makes the lesson richer and more interesting. But I will start. I start with the big question, or the big idea in the book, and then from that I can do another. The students that I have in my classroom right now would find interesting, or because I'm at the primary level, I can integrate the math that I'm doing with the other subjects. So
That's what I was going to ask you.
yeah, so if I'm doing social studies, science, also if school activity that I know at my school, we've been working, we had a water day, and we had a great big gulp, and we were drinking water in the hallway and chatting. So that gives me the idea to develop math lessons around that, which we did. We measured the pH level, the water quality from in the water bottle and in my fish tank, and we put all that on Nearpod. And I think that my girls find that really, really interesting, and they're really motivated because they like touching, they like technology. So I can link that with other things we do in the classroom.
Thinking about what you said about the social justice thing, because but also your integration. So you're thinking about, even if you wanted them to build the tables, but then it could be early societies, what did they use for tables and measured materials, and then even adding your number sense of how much it would cost then compared to even now to build a table. So then you're getting number sense, and you're also getting some of your social studies in there, so then you can be integrated quite a bit.
And there's an app for that, and there's this, and then, as teachers, and just to restate the obvious, before we use technology, we kind of have to think about, what are we trying to achieve, right? And then how can we achieve that? So, what's the pedagogy behind using it? Is it just a newer thing? Am I using the technology as a $400 textbook or pencil?
Mm-hmm.
Or, how am I creating new learning?
It's like people who use the smart boards, just like a chalkboard,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like, what's the point of having a smart board if you're just going to write on it?
If you're going to have the timer. Not really. Do with the USD, LA Unified School District, and the huge deal that they did with Apple and $500 million spent on iPads and Pearson curriculum, and it didn't work. And so now the LAUSD is suing Apple, I think probably in person, to get the money back. But the last line of the article, from the quote from the LAUSD guy was, well, this year we're buying math textbooks. I found that fascinating, like,
Did the article go on to talk about why it didn't work? Why did they say it didn't work in those schools?
well, it was the whole city of Los Angeles.
Yes.
So, I think, part of it was the fact that the teachers didn't get trained. I mean, and then there's no money, or it wasn't put into the code in the first place, that maybe there should be some professional development. Or the teachers just weren't ready for it, or, I mean, it was just bad. It was bad from start to finish. And I think they thought an option, and clearly it didn't work.
This is my own personal, but I find iPads very limiting. Like, it's not a device neutral device. Like,
Yeah.
you're stuck with apps from the App Store, right? And opening Word documents, you can open them, but kids can't edit them unless you actually have the real app to edit the document, right? So I know in my board, there's a movement away from Apple products and going towards more Chromebooks now.
Oh, we are the opposite. I would come from Peel,
Yeah,
and we still very much into buying Apple, because we do.
it's,
Oh, you feel, okay.
yeah, it's away from
Not
iPads.
Not my school at all.
Well, it's
You know
unfortunate
why?
that some
You know why? I'll tell
administrators.
you why. Because the iPad allows us to be creative. They want our students to be using it for writing, for creating, for expressing themselves, for like doing everything we can to create it. And the iPad is really, really good for that.
Yeah, but the challenge is like, for the cost of one iPad, even the 16 gig model, you can buy 2 Chromebooks, right? So I would rather have two Chromebooks in my class rather than one iPad.
If we take,
The only disadvantage that you have is that, heaven forbid, you're big at disadvantage that I didn't say about the homework.
so let's like, we can go all day iPad versus.
Yeah.
Let's talk about maybe ways in math that we can use technology to capture student learning, or to have some synthesis of products, right? So like, has anybody had a?
How many people use Explain Everything?
Because that's a good place there, where, for example, we talk about what do we do with our other kids who are done or ahead or whatever. And to some point, I have those kids who are more advanced, they're finished, they get the concept, what's the point of having them sit through the lesson? Well, you know what? Why don't you prepare a lesson for other people to use and explain the concept? Ways for that app to use, but also you've tapped into those kids. So then you're gonna really see how deep do they really understand this concept. Because for them to be able to teach you someone and explain in clear terms, you're getting your communication mark there still, because you're looking at it, you're getting a thinking mark from them, and your non-application, because can they apply their knowledge there? So even though they're doing that through the technology piece, you're still being able to assess them in all 4 categories, and they're not, but that gives you a chance, they can work quietly while you work with the kids who still don't get this concept. And then if those kids want, that they did, was really good, well then those kids can use the activity that the other parents just did.
The other provide the differentiation. So if you, for example, you want to use Explain Everything, which I do, but the Nearpod allows to class I'm gifted students. So I have next year I'm going to have a split class, but with one lesson I can have every single student to be creative with open-ended question. I think it allows differentiation, which is really makes my life very much easier. And the fact that with Nearpod I'm able to do the debriefing in the classroom. Students like to express themselves. There's so much less marking on me. So I'm able to, I have more time to prepare a good lesson and have I spend less time marking. okay, do marking and do the ONAP test. It takes hours to mark, but still, I think by using that, I'm spending a lot less time marking. So my students are more engaged. I prepare better lessons.
And I'm guessing too, when you have, do they have the ability to see each other's work? Is it a
Yeah, well,
group?
this is what I will do when we do the debriefing. The students are able to, like, I will share what the students are doing. I will share, I can share what each student is doing, so I can pick and choose.
Mhm.
And I do put up a child's work, like everybody can see. And then, so the debriefing allows me to see who's done their work, like, and how, and allows them to also to share the work that they did at the end. Everybody can have something meaningful to say and to contribute.
Right, hi Barry.
Because,
Like, it's good too, right? When we use the technology, what I'm hearing is like it gives people a chance to give instant feedback, which is
yes,
important to
yes,
the learning, and it gives the teacher a chance to do quick assessments, right?
yeah,
And assessments for learning.
yeah.
So that's a
exactly.
good tool that we could be using.
That's I use any app to present something.
Mhm.
I can use anything. But Nearpod was just so good in the sense that it even forces me to do the debriefing, and it's very important, I think, and to do assessment on a daily basis. So, and we do that in the classroom in a way that the students really enjoy. They really enjoy sharing what they did. Oh, madam, look at what I did, and they want to share. There's no that, so it's motivating. You know, my share the learning.
Has anybody else had an example of how they've been using technology in math? Like, I just recently, and I set out a challenge to use a GeoBoard program, and in GeoBoards, we kind of drew the connection between they were creating shapes on the geoboards, so the geometrical shapes, but then it was easier for them to move in. And some kids, like, they actually need to see when you flip it over, when you label the four corners, well, it's not just the square ones over, that outside corner is still the outside corner, so that helped some students, but did. So I'm always trying to figure out how to bring it to the next level. It's tough. Yeah, well, no, like on the iPad, yeah.
So there's a map visual.
Yeah, if you go GeoBoard, the one that I like using is the one from Learning Center. And what I liked about that was it gives you the option to use the web base, so you're not stuck with the app. Mm-hmm.
How many people use Desmos?
Yeah, I've used them.
Yeah.
In secondary.
Desmos, yeah, DESMOS.
And
It's an online open source graphing calculator. The most common application I see is the teachers have students create pictures using graphs. So I don't know how we would apply, like again, like I'm not elementary, but I could see the application for grade 7 and 8 when you start talking about linear functions, like graphing lines, right? So like that's when it's is it introduced in grade 7? Or even grade 6, or?
no, not the y equals mx plus. I had some kind
Yeah.
We can use the technology lesson or as your lesson, but we can also use the technology just to capture provocations, to get that use technology to capture provocations or to share videos with the kids on the concept you're introducing, to get their questions, especially if you can get some of real life ones. I don't know how many of you are follow Matthew Aldridge on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
But Matthew takes a lot of pictures along the road, and he takes pictures of it, the big cylinder. So I actually do my measurement unit. They were planning my measurement unit because they were posting so many cylindrical shapes and the Ferris wheel and all that. And you don't think about using the Ferris wheel, or you know what the distance distance. You can do angles on the Ferris wheel, you can do circumference, you can, there's a bunch of stuff. Pictures out there and videos that we could bring into the classroom to get those kids to spark their interest going in that math. So there's our technology as well.
It's amazing what a simple thing, we just have to have our eyes open to see it. 2 quick examples is I brought a piece of string into a kindergarten room. How are we gonna use this? And then we started talking about measuring tables, and then we brought in proportional reasoning. We're like, this is the length of the table, which is 63 erasers, and we just took this to the next level. And it was Easter shopping for my 2 kids, and there was a sign that says $1.27 each, or 3 for $4. And I was like, why don't you charge me $1.27 each then? And and I took a picture of that, and then we brought it back into a classroom and said, let's talk about rates and ratios and.
How many people follow Dan Meyer?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, I think one of the links that he has is,
That's the tree app, right? Tree park.
yeah, so, but there's one website that he follows, I can't remember the name.
101
Yeah, something like,
provocations,
yeah, so like, picture comes pictures, and what he encourages is just, like, the way you could have it open-ended with your students, or how you want to start the lesson is, what questions could be asked from this picture, right? In general, like, right? What questions do you want to ask about this? So like for me, technology, like it's this quandary, like, how, like honestly, how important really is the technology rather than just the enrichment of the lesson, right? Like it's, like for instance, like open-ended questions can be just an open-ended question. You could just put it on the smartboard, right? You don't have to necessarily deliver it through Nearpod or any other student delivery system on a device or whatever. Like for instance, like when I was teaching grade 9 business, I said, okay, here the open-ended activity was the curriculum expectation was to teach them about internet service providers, right? So I said, here's what you're going to do, and I did it in groups. I go, you're going to be your parents. You're going to take on the role of your parents, and you're going to shop for an internet service plan, right? And I left it open-ended as because there was one group that had the $29 cheapo plan, and one group that picked the $249.99 plan. And then after that, the conversation ensues, like, why did this group pick $250 and this group pick $30 a month, right? So like, that's sort of the quandary I have is like, do I really necessarily have to use technology? And even like this guy Dan Meyer, right? Like you follow some of these math people and it's not necessarily all about the technology.
It's just a picture of a steel thing.
Yeah, like the technology, like you said, could be a picture on someone's phone, right? And then you just post a picture. Right?
I think that's important because, as you said, learning to able to get, you have to know using that app.
You have to be able to answer, what's the learning,
Yes.
right? Like, so, if you can't answer what's the learning, it's about teaching that rich. I would suggest then that's where, but you don't have to be married to it throughout the process.
I think the technology piece is if your class has access to it and that every student has a device. Like for instance, like when I did that activity with the internet service provider, I was at a laptop school before I got access to a different school, is, okay, well you have a device, now you have the opportunity to look at all these different companies, right? And start looking at the different companies, right? So so they're, I didn't tell them, go to this company. Service firm, right? But if you're lucky enough where you have access to information, like you have the advantage that you can make a lot more of your lessons student-directed learning rather than you as the teacher standing at the front of the room speaking the whole time. Like,
Yeah.
Like that's
Here's my question. Why are parents spending $80, $90 an hour on tutoring? What's not happening?
I would say part of it is like, the ministry has removed a lot of the rote out of the learning, right? You're also seeing perhaps a shift where, like, I don't wanna put everyone in my age category, but my generation, maybe one parent was at home versus parents today where that they don't have that luxury, where one parent is always home, right? Less time spending at the kitchen. So, like, as a math teacher at the high school level, you're seeing where kids coming to at the high school level and they don't know their times tables, they don't, right? They don't understand percentages as much.
Well, I think part of it is also where, like, I'm looking at my example, my classroom, and we collaborate a lot with our math videos to help each other out, but there's still those few that cannot distinguish between helping and telling.
Yeah.
And you know, they say the same thing comes with siblings. You know, the oldest one is the strongest because he starts speaking for the middle one or the youngest one, and they don't learn as quickly or as fast. So that's still going on in the classrooms too.
I think part of it too, people, parents want it too, because I've had kids in my class who you would call are the more able students, and they're still going to the Kumon. And it's still like, I don't discourage them because it's up to them if they want to do it, but my view still is that Kumon will help them with the facts, it helps them